July 14th, 1683, just after dawn, an engineer named Georg Rimpler climbs onto a crumbling section of Vienna's south wall and starts counting campfires. He stops somewhere past 200,000. Behind him, inside the city, fewer than 16,000 men are left to defend it. Every soldier on that wall already knows the math doesn't work. The army camped outside is the most feared war machine on earth. It hasn't lost a siege it fully committed to in over a century. The Holy Roman Emperor has already fled the city with his court, taking the treasury and leaving behind a garrison, a few thousand armed civilians, and one unproven promise that help is coming. It doesn't come for 2 months. For 2 months, a city that should have fallen in a week refuses to die. And by the time it's over, the battle fought on the hills above Vienna will decide whether Central Europe stays independent or becomes a province of an empire stretching from Budapest to Baghdad. This is the story of how 16,000 people bought enough time to save a continent, and why the men who finally arrived to save them almost arrived too late to matter. To understand why Vienna held, you have to understand why nobody expected it to. The Ottoman army that summer wasn't just large, it was patient. Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha had no intention of throwing his men against Vienna's walls in a bloody frontal assault. He didn't need to. He had engineers. Instead of storming the city, his men dug. Trench after trench crept toward the walls like roots, sheltering troops from cannon fire, while sappers packed tunnels beneath the fortifications with gunpowder. Storming a city destroys it. Undermining a city conquers it intact, and Kara Mustafa wanted Vienna's wealth, not its ashes. Inside those walls, food was already running low by the second week. Fresh water was rationed. Disease moved faster than bullets. Ernst Ediger von Starhemberg, the general left behind to hold the impossible, had been wounded before the siege even began, and he ran the defense from a chair when his leg couldn't carry him to the walls. He wasn't a famous commander. He wasn't chosen because anyone believed in a miracle. He was chosen because someone had to stay, and he didn't leave. Every few days, the ground beneath a section of wall would erupt. Not from cannon fire, from below. Ottoman mines detonated section after section of Vienna's defenses, and each time, Starhemberg's men rushed into the smoking gap to fight hand to hand before the enemy could pour through. They held. Then, they rebuilt what was left of the wall with rubble, furniture, anything that could stop a musket ball, and waited for the ground to open again. By late August, messengers had stopped getting in or out. Vienna had gone silent to the outside world. One man did make it through the Ottoman lines, with news that would decide everything: confirmation that a relief army was finally moving. Whether Vienna could survive long enough for it to arrive was a different question entirely. 400 kilometers away, a king who owed Vienna nothing was already marching. Jan III Sobieski, King of Poland, had spent his life fighting the Ottomans and beating them. A decade earlier, badly outnumbered, he had crushed an Ottoman army at Kotin, the victory that made him king. He understood something most European rulers didn't, that Ottoman power depended on momentum. Stop it once, decisively, and it would take years to rebuild. Let it take Vienna, and there might not be a second chance to stop it at all. So Sobieski did something almost nobody expected. He didn't wait for a grand alliance to organize itself with the slow, careful diplomacy of the age. He marched immediately, dragging his army and, more importantly, his heavy winged hussar cavalry over the Carpathian passes before the mountain paths could be blocked. Along the way, German and Austrian forces under Charles of Lorraine folded into his command. By late August, a combined force of roughly 70,000 men was converging on Vienna from the northwest, through terrain the Ottoman army had barely bothered to guard. That was the miscalculation nobody saw yet. Kara Mustafa had positioned his forces to besiege a city, not to fight a war on two fronts. He kept the bulk of his troops facing the walls, still convinced the city would break before any relief force could reach it. The forested slopes of the Wienerwald, north of the city, were left thinly defended because no one believed an army could move heavy cavalry and artillery through them in time. They did. On September 11th, the relief army began climbing through those forests in the dark, hauling cannons up slopes that weren't built for them, men and horses exhausted from a march that had barely paused in weeks. From inside the burning, starving city, lookouts on St. Stephen's Cathedral began seeing something impossible in the distant signal fires, answering their own. Lit from the hills above Vienna. For the first time in 2 months, the defenders knew for certain someone had actually come. At dawn on September 12th, the battle began. Not on the walls, but on the high ground. Ottoman units scrambled to redirect their attention from a starving city to an army now appearing on their flank. And for hours, the fighting was brutal and undecided. Charles of Lorraine's infantry ground forward through Ottoman positions in the hills. Kara Mustafa, still gambling that he could finish the siege before the relief force fully engaged, split his attention between two battles at once. By late afternoon, Sobieski made his move. Roughly 18,000 cavalry, with the Polish Winged Hussars at their center, formed along the slopes above the Ottoman camp. The largest cavalry charge in recorded history was about to begin. The Hussars wore wooden wing frames strapped to their backs, designed to shriek in the wind as they rode, a sound meant to unsettle men and horses alike. From the plain below, the charge must have looked less like an army and more like something breaking loose from the sky itself. It didn't just break the Ottoman line, it broke the siege entirely. Ottoman troops who had spent 2 months confident that Vienna's walls would fall any day now, found their own camp overrun from behind. Kara Mustafa's army, still positioned to besiege a city, was never arranged to survive a cavalry charge of that scale, hitting them from the high ground. Within hours, the siege that had lasted 60 days collapsed in a single afternoon. Kara Mustafa fled, abandoning an entire camp, tents, treasure, weapons, supplies for an army of 250,000 left behind in the panic. Ottoman losses that day numbered in the thousands. The relief force lost a fraction of that. It wasn't a narrow victory, it was a rout. Starhemberg and his surviving defenders, who 2 months earlier had been counting campfires and expecting to die, walked out to find the army that had tried to starve them into submission, simply gone. Kara Mustafa didn't survive the failure for long. Blamed for the disaster, he was executed by order of the Sultan within months, a warning to any future commander who let Ottoman momentum stall in front of a European city. Vienna's survival did more than save one city. It marked the point where Ottoman expansion into Europe stopped and began to reverse. The war that followed dragged on for 16 years, ending with the Ottomans losing Hungary entirely at the Treaty of Karlowitz, the first time in centuries the empire had been forced to give up territory rather than take it. The balance of power in Europe shifted permanently that afternoon on the hills above Vienna. Historians have compared it, fairly, to Charles Martel's stand at Tours, nearly 1,000 years earlier, another moment where a European army stopped an advancing force at what felt like the last possible line. Both battles share the same quiet, unsettling truth. History sometimes turns, not on inevitability, but on how long exhausted, outnumbered people are willing to keep holding a wall that keeps collapsing beneath them. There's a smaller legend from that same siege, impossible to fully verify, but too good not to mention. That sacks of coffee beans, abandoned in the Ottoman camp, found their way into Vienna's cafes and helped start the city's coffeehouse culture that still exists today. True or not, It says something about how quickly a story of starvation and siege can turn into something people build a peaceful life around. Walk up Kallenberg Hill today, and you'll find quiet vineyards and a view of Vienna's skyline, instead of an army descending in the dark. Nothing marks most of it as a battlefield at all. That's usually how it goes. The places where continents almost changed hands tend to end up looking like nowhere in particular. 16,000 people held a city for 2 months without knowing if anyone was coming. That's the part of this story worth remembering, not just the charge that finally arrived, but the 2 months of people who had no idea it would. If you like stories where the outcome was never guaranteed until the very last hour, there's more of this history waiting for you.